Blessings unto the heart and the mind of your being. I am Lady Master Natasha. Beloved ones, it is with great joy that we interact with your consciousness in this manner. For this, the final lesson on giving and receiving. And you have each experienced, before the beginning of this lesson, an interaction with one another. And in that interaction, you have both given and you have received. That, of course, is what planet Earth is based upon. It is based upon give and receive. Some call it the law of attractions. It is what you emanate that creates. It is who you are and what comes forth from you, which is what you give. And in the receiving, you have choice, beloveds. You have choice as to whether you will receive or whether you will not receive. You may give into the world where you are now, planet Earth. You may give into what you call life, and life will respond. And as you have learned, the conduit of your being will take it to the soul, the giver of your being, which will then, beyond judgment, not deciding whether this is good for you or bad for you, whether you will truly love it or whether you will hate it or whether it will be neutral. It simply creates and returns into your experience that which you have emanated, that which you have requested, whether you are aware of the requesting or not. What each of you who has been following the giving and receiving lessons, as it were, has moved through since their beginning is you have moved through very detailed awareness of your giving and your receiving. For some it has caused great anguish. For some it has created laughter. For others it has created a deep pondering. Some of you have been drawn to go back to old lessons, as it were, and to reread them. And in the rereading, you have recognized that in this moment of your life, you are in the receiving of the giving that was done so long ago, but it was also the receiving that was given so long ago. It is a part of the duality of life on planet Earth, but it is the most important part of understanding who you, true self, are, and what your skills have always been. On your planet, giving and receiving was symbolized in many of the events that you experienced in elementary school. There was Valentine's Day, and in most schools it was required that you gave a Valentine. What that did in your inner world is not equalize love for all. It imprinted you with the idea that giving was required whether you desired it or not, and that receiving was required whether you desired it or not. So we say you have choice in the receiving, but we also say you have limitations within yourself that require the receiving. What else did you learn? There were many things you had to learn to give up your place in line to another. You had to learn to give up your desk to a newcomer. You had to learn to give things that as a child forced you out of the comfort zone of the known into the uncomfortable zone of the unknown. And so, for some of you, giving became a requirement and not something from the ebullient nature of your being. For others, you were trained to give falsely. You were trained to give of an energy or an emotion to keep someone happy or to prevent something dangerous from occurring. You were trained to generate that which was untrue to the core of your being in order to create something that would keep you safe, perhaps, or that would bring to you that which you were seeking, but you brought it to yourself in what others would call a false manner, as it were. And so there is the judgment that comes in later years. If you think back over your life up until these teachings, perhaps earlier than these teachings, you will see that the give and take in the world has been sullied, we might say. There is a saying on your planet, is there not, that give and take, one must give and take? But it is said in such a way that it is offhanded, and the energy attached to it is one of being complicit, but not joyful, being in alignment with someone else's commands, but not pleased about it. So in giving, beloveds, there is still that which is within the self, where giving feels in the programmed self that one is getting the short end of the deal, that if one truly gave what was in one's heart, one would be laughed at, or one would be turned away, or one would be rejected. And on your planet, rejection is akin to death, as it were. For in a culture where people depend upon one another for their livelihoods, rejection brings memories of the ancient tribal lives, where if you did not fulfill the customs of the tribe, you were rejected. Or if you did not please the Pharaoh or the emperor, let us say you were part of a harem, then you were kicked out, as it were. You were rejected. And in rejection over and over on your planet has come death, beloveds. So we bring this up because the importance of the giving-receiving duality on your planet is tied in with survival. One must give a certain way, and or one must receive a certain way, or one must only receive and never give, or one must give and never receive. This is an entire inner world for exploration within the self. The good news is, it is not a requirement that you give this to yourself, and it is not a requirement that you receive this in yourself. What you are seeking, beloveds, is lesson number 1, the grand secret. True joy is tranquility. And within the tranquility, there is a removal of the judgment. There is simply an awareness of the giving and the receiving, an awareness of the story as it unfolds itself, an awareness of the interaction of those in other lives and their stories of giving and receiving as their lives unfold themselves. We invited you, beloveds, to each day of this past week to awaken each morning and ask yourself what you are giving to yourself that day. Did you give yourself opportunity? Did you give yourself emotion? Did you give yourself freedom? Did you give yourself joy? Did you give yourself the opposite of any of these? Did you give yourself restriction? Did you give yourself anger? Did you give yourself shame? Did you give yourself judgment? If in the asking of what you were going to give yourself, you noticed that you either forgot or you did not spend an energetic moment truly imprinting that desire of what you wish to give yourself, why is that? There is the question, what must I refuse to give myself? And each of you has an answer to that question, and each of you has more than one answer to that question. And once you recognize at least one answer to that question, you will begin to perceive each of your days as the receiving of what you have given yourself in days gone by, as it were. If you have given yourself freedom to express and freedom to learn, there will be an energy within your day now and in your life now in this moment where you feel permission to explore the unknown, to explore that which you do not know yet, to look at it with open eyes, whether it is yourself and your life that you are living, or whether it is just those you are interacting with. If you have given yourself restriction, you will be able to perceive even in this moment how you have narrowed the corridors of your life, how perhaps you have limited yourself in mobility. Perhaps you have limited yourself in accepting invitations from others that would expand your awareness of life in some manner. What you have given to life, you have given to yourself. What you have given to others, you have given to yourself. So if you have given generously to others, we, the Council of Eight, offer the suggestion that you own this in this moment. That in that generosity is not fear that you are not giving enough, but in that generosity is that you are perceiving in another what you love about yourself. And so rather than hold humanity at bay, as it were, experiencing them as something that you cannot relate to because perhaps they are superior to your being, or something you cannot relate to because you are not on the same path, it matters not. In the giving you find what you love about yourself, and in the receiving you recognize what you allow into your life. This short lesson, this final lesson of giving and receiving, is for deep pondering, beloveds. Unto the lights that you are, beloved ones, we pour our love, we pour our energy, we pour our vision for your awakening, for your enlightenment, for your understanding, for your birthing into that consciousness that is the truth of your being, the awakened self, the aware self, the being that had the wisdom and the joy and the trust to take on human form and experience life in whatever manner you could allow yourself. Blessings under the hearts, the minds, and the souls of your beings.